like so many other expats you'll probably have on your show, I also will say I don't feel particularly German, nor do I feel particularly British. That's my other nationality. So I kept coming back, not least because of a lady I fell in love with then in my late teenage years. Following my degree in sound engineering, I started working for a BBC affiliate, script, whatever, to make it sound very conversational. And sometimes it's just not written that way. Sometimes it's written very plainly, very overly commercial, very salesy. Only $1.99. Buy now, get it tomorrow. Else, offer ending soon. How can you'd never talk like that to your closest friend. I came from a corporate background, if you like, having worked at Red Bull for over 8 years. But rather than seeing it as a lack of stability, I see it as a gain of flexibility.
Born in Germany, but then you moved to your base now is Austria and also Goa in India.
That's right, yeah.
How do you balance the whole journey, hopping from one place to the other?
Yeah, gladly. So first of all, I like to make a little joke out of it and not call myself a digital nomad so much, but rather a digital VOMAD. VO for voiceover. So that was digital VOMAD, and it's kind of catchy and always good to have a hook for people and clients to remember you. I didn't come up with it. I'm not going to claim the glory for that. There's actually a colleague, a Dutch-British colleague who's not exactly trademarked it, but I think he owns the copyright to the URL anyway. Shout out to him, living on Bali, in case he's in this. But yeah, I've taken it on as my persona, if you like. And I do travel the world a lot with my mic and a laptop and record my voice mainly in German, but sometimes also in this quirky brand of English that you hear now, which is a mix of all the places I've been and the cultures that I've been immersed in. So even though I was born in Berlin, I don't, like so many other expats you'll probably have on your show, I also will say I don't feel particularly German, a bit of a cliche, nor do I feel particularly British. That's my other nationality, so I'm half English.
Oh, yes.
Having traveled so much from a young age, so at age 3, I moved with my family, or rather my family moved with me to Italy first, then back to Germany for a short while, then on to Spain. Then I was schooled in the UK, and even at that young age, travels to India frequently from age 8 onwards. So my first time in India was 1986. So don't go calculating my age from that information I'm saving up. I really have to say I fell in love with the country at a young age. It was, even back then, it was such a respite and a difference to the mundaneness, if you like, of the West. Or just exciting for a young boy and a teenager, and bubbling, juicy atmosphere. So many people, so many impressions, so many sights, colors, sounds. So I kept coming back, not least because of a lady I fell in love with then in my late teenage years, and ended up marrying. So I married into an Indian family, and that was, of course, a strong pull to always come back here, even though then I went and studied in the West and had my first steps in my career following my degree in sound engineering. I started working for a BBC affiliate and very quickly noticed, really quite subconsciously, that I was very interested in sound and music, as was my father, who was a sound engineer and very active in the media. He was quite a well-known TV presenter in Germany. So somehow, there's a German saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Or is it a British saying? See, I'm so confused. I don't even know where that kind of saying comes from.
It's an American one.
It's probably American, yeah. So I somehow really quite unconsciously slid into that line of work. Realized that I liked it. Dabbled in DJing and event management for some time.
Wow.
I was traveling Europe as an electronic music DJ before going back into audio post-production, working for large recording studios mainly doing promos and commercials in German. In my sort of mid-20s, having not lived in Germany for some time and having pretty much unlearned the German language, and suddenly I was thrown in at the deep end and I had to direct German voice actors as to how they should best speak. I made a complete fool of myself and had to relearn German, basically. But from there, it just, the journey took its hold, and I was always very interested in voice and what you can do with a voice. And I also realized that these voice actors that I was privileged enough to record, that I could really learn from them. First-hand experience, working by doing, as they say in Germany a lot, rather than going the, say, official or educational way. So while I was working as a sound engineer at these recording studios, I slowly made forays into the voice acting world and built up a side career as a freelance voice actor. Up until I could really live off that and realized that this is fun. It's a brilliant art and craft and very multifaceted. And it allowed me to travel as well, rather than being fixed in a studio. Because as an audio engineer, you really are very fixed to your surroundings. You have to have the acoustic treatment and all that. So I was very happy to be able to then just at one point, having climbed the career ladder up to senior audio engineer at a large multinational, which was Red Bull, the Red Bull Media House, who produced so much very, as they'd say, awesome, incredible, gnarly, stoking stuff. I learned so much, and we got to play with them.
I see that. I'm learning as well. Now in the process of really talking to you, I'm learning. Okay, that's a term that people use. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it was a fantastic journey, and from there on, I took it all a bit more serious with my voice acting, and then started to make it something I could do on my travels, which I could do because of my background in audio engineering. Otherwise, most voice actors and actresses, they will also have to go to a recording studio.
Yeah.
But seeing that I knew the technology, and I've now made a sort of name for myself for being able to build recording booths wherever I go.
Nice.
Very quickly in hotel rooms, out of cupboards,
Wow.
and using blankets and duvets. And in fact, I made one yesterday here, which sounded great. And I keep learning. So yesterday I built a little recording booth with the help of a telescopic mop handle. So you end up improvising and using everyday stuff, which, in India they have a great word for, the Jugaad. You make do with what you have. So funnily enough, they have that concept in many different cultures. When I was in Mexico 2 years back, they have the same thing in Mexico. They call it a Mexicaneada, a Mexicanism, right?
Mexicanism.
So that would be a most literal translation. Just kind of making do with what you have. Call it a MacGyver kind of attitude to your art and craft, but it's fun.
Do you speak in different languages as well, besides German?
I speak Spanish and that's what I speak now, if you want to call it English.
Okay.
Because I was first schooled in Spain from age 6 to 9 or so.
6 to 9, but then did you keep it up, the learning the language, or did you have to do it for work later on?
No, my parents had settled. My mother and my father too, for some time, had settled in Spain. So even then, when I was doing my schooling and university in the UK, I would keep traveling back to Spain and keeping up the practice.
You are really coming from a global family, right? A global citizen from a global family.
Yeah, it's very fragmented.
Global parent.
So none of us really identify with a nation. It's a difficult question whenever people put that to me. Where are you from? What do you do? Or like, what are you? Trying to pigeonhole you into a box. And as I told you before the interview, really, I feel I've spent so much time in India now that even though I hardly look it, but I resonate the most with the Indian culture. And I feel, very aligned with India, and just love being here.
I think when I spoke to you for the first time on the phone, I could catch that, okay, you are German, because I could pick out the German accent. Then as we spoke, I hear like, no, he's got some kind of Indianized English as well coming in the background. And
Hey, man.
yeah. Do you do that? I mean, do you consciously do it as per the one who's listening to you, or is it just a part of your personality that okay, you switch unknowingly from one accent to the other in English, the dialects, let's say?
It's probably a bit of both.
Okay.
Generally, just being surrounded and immersed in this culture, it creeps into my everyday language. But of course, you have to tailor the way you speak to certain people in Indian society for better understandability. So, if I'm speaking or talking with somebody who's English is not their first language and they may not be that good at English, then I will consciously tone down the complexity of my speech and perhaps add a few more of these Indianisms. But in general, it's just a lovely, fun language. I mean, now I've noticed that even my sentence structuring has started to become a bit Indian after I went for Hindi classes. And then, so...
You also then know Hindi a bit.
Totally. Yeah.
And is it in the script or just the English learning? Because in Hindi, you have the letters.
Yeah,
right? Definitely. Have you learned that?
Yeah, I can read it. I can't write it. Oh, I also can't read it perfectly, but I can get by.
Wow.
But I'm far off from marketing my voice as a Hindi native. That's a big issue actually in my line of work, because a lot of people do make themselves out to be native speakers of different countries, and that's not what the clients want to hear or anybody else. I worked for a recording studio once, even just in northern Germany, and we recorded a voice actor who claimed to be able to do a South German accent, which was for a radio commercial, which was then broadcast in South Germany, and the radio station got complaint calls saying, we can hear that this guy trying to sell us something in a commercial is not one of us. He's not South German.
Wow.
So we had to retract, or rather the client asked us to then redo that commercial with a proper native South German. So I'm very careful. I do sound accent-free in German, but I couldn't market myself even as a native Brit now. But then I found another niche, which is this kind of global English, which a lot of international companies like to use as well, because it's kind of unplaceable, and a lot of markets, especially in advertising, they don't want to have an American specifically, or a Brit or a New Zealand or whatever speak to them. They want it to be an unplaceable English accent, global or international or neutral English. Or they even used to call it mid-Atlantic. Which doesn't exist, but that's
a moment where it took you really longer to finish the project, let's say.
There were quite a few of those. I mean, especially, and this is I wouldn't say a fad, but how would you say a trend that many countries are going towards, especially in commercials, which is to have the commercial copy sound, the copy, Americans say copy for text, script, whatever, to make it sound very conversational. And sometimes it's just not written that way. Sometimes it's written very plainly, very overly commercial, very salesy. Only $1.99, buy now, get it tomorrow, else offer ending soon. How can you'd never talk like that to your closest friend, yet they want you to sound like that. So sometimes it's really like, what are you asking me to do? I can't change the script if you want to sound conversational. So sometimes they do and change the script right then and there. Sometimes, more often they don't. And you end up giving it your best shot at sounding relaxed and friendly, and like you're giving somebody a secret tip, whispering to them. There's all sorts of tricks that you can employ when you're in the booth in front of the mic. Another very challenging one was perhaps when they booked me according to a sample that they heard of my voice, which the sound engineer had previously pitched down to make it sound lower. I don't have the deepest bellowing or low voice. I can put it on, but it doesn't really sound natural. Yet that's how that sounded, and that's how they were expecting me to sound. And then when they recorded me, it didn't quite sound like that. So they weren't best pleased. So I don't know what they did in the end. If they pitched me down again electronically later, I don't know. But so it's a fun.
So it is challenging, isn't it? And I can't imagine every project doesn't look the same. So even if you've done a voiceover for commercials, brand to brand, it differs.
Very much.
And then how does the work, let's say, how does your a day looks like as a voiceover artist? Suppose if you are based, let's say, in India today, and you have a client, so does it look like you are there in the studio for the whole day, or is it like just a couple of hours of preparation, go there, record it, done, back home? How does a voiceover artist spend their day? Plus, as a nomad, right? Like you don't have the work takes you wherever you go. So how does your work in a day looks like? Normally, traditionally, we go to office 9 to 5. You have meetings, blah blah blah. What about you? How does it look like?
Yeah, it's super interesting. The work will follow me wherever I go.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of it.
That's amazing. Okay.
Yeah, so a day in my life would be get up in the mornings, and once I'm in work mode, I'll check my emails, and often there'll be audition requests. So I have some agents, but there are also some websites. This is way more usual in the English-speaking media world than it is in Germany, but then they will ask you to record a short snippet of a certain text, or perhaps just send them a pre-recorded sample of something else, that the samples you collect on your hard drive as you go along.
Yeah.
And you can then target and send the right sample that's in a similar vein, let's say, to the production that's being looked at that they want to record. And so I'll record a few of those auditions, send those off, and then some will materialize or get converted into real paid jobs. And then I'll either go into my home booth, so I have two bases. I have a base in Austria and I have a base in Goa. And so I have professional sounding booths. If I'm on the road, then I'll go and make do with whatever I can. Make sure that there's the least amount of reverb or foreign noises going on that shouldn't be on the recording. The holy grail is always to keep the audio quality as crisp and clean as possible, and not have any barking dogs or rickshaws passing by or birds chirping. So that's a lot of fun. Sometimes it can take some time, or half an hour meanwhile, and I'll pretty much be set up in a hotel room, dresser, drawer, cabinet.
Right.
So I'll record that. And there's two ways. Either the client will ask me to just record at my own pace whenever I can and send it to them by the internet. So an internet connection is always a prerequisite, like for most digital nomads.
Yes.
But often you can even do it. Like I was in Nepal and I was astounded at how fast even 5G coverage is on the mobile. And then I could edit, record professionally, plug my professional mic into an iPhone, edit on the iPhone, and then send it off, in the middle of the Himalayas. And so there's some great stories that come out of this kind of way of working. But the main three pillars that my work is based on, and this is the funny thing about being a voice actor, perhaps 20% of my work is only the actual voicing. The rest is the business side, the technical side, and the marketing side. Mm-hmm. So really, that's what makes it so fun and multifaceted, is that there are these three big pillars, and that you need to know about the business, the marketing side, your pricing, your website, your promotion, going after jobs as well. Meanwhile, jobs find me as well. You get established at some point. It takes a few years. And then there's the technical side. You have to wear that hat as a sound engineer and make sure everything sounds great, the editing is on point, you edit out breaths or takes that shouldn't be in the final production. And so you just you have a bit of an advantage if you have a good understanding of those sides.
I think that those are big advantages. You have the experience and knowledge about the technical things. Mm-hmm. So you wear multiple hats, not just a voiceover artist, I think so, right?
Yeah, that's the fun part of it as well. So I always have to see it's never boring. I mean, I can, if I want to one day just not work in the mornings, I will not work, and unless I have a specific appointment, say, where a client would like to listen in and direct live as I voice, and that happens more and more. And so there's certain programs for that I can use, and then you connect to studios all over the world. I had a great session, I think it was 3 months back, in Osaka. So I was in Kyoto in Japan, and then I had a a voiceover gig for a large American company with my agent patched in, as they say, in LA. The end client was listening in from Germany, so it was these 3 very different time zones that had to get together at a certain time, and we had to find a studio for that because I was on the road. I was on a motorcycle trip, so they paid for a local studio there, which meant a 6 a.m. start of recording for me. And it was then, midnight in Germany, and I think the late afternoon in LA or so. And somehow through the internet, I was then being directed, and they were actually recording from their end as well. So it's not like we have safety record locally, as you say, so that just in case anything gets lost through the internet, we have that backup. But really, the audio is just going straight through the internet, and they can finish the production over there in LA. With the client in Germany having given the green light, saying, that's how we want it. So it's magic.
And do you believe the fact that there's a lack of stability?
I came from a corporate background, if you like, having worked at Red Bull for over 8 years, and that was a 9 to 5, an 8 to 6 even. 8 to 6, along with my family and along with starting, or at that point, really getting serious about my side job as well as a voice actor. I was employed as an audio engineer. So I'm well aware, and I've lived that lifestyle. But rather than seeing it as a lack of stability, I see it as a gain of flexibility. So I love traveling. If I want to go, I didn't go to Japan, for example, because I had to be there for that job. I wanted to go to Japan to see an old buddy and to ride motorcycles. And it so happened that then my job fell in those dates, and then I made sure that I did it from there. And my clients are luckily very understanding of that. Especially having made that my, what do you say, USP?
Yeah.
So yes, So that the fact that I am a traveling voice actor, and perhaps my clients are now also used to the fact that perhaps I do react a little slower than ones who are settled and fixed to a fixed location.
Well, with so much of traveling, do you also feel sometimes that you feel you need that break, like for your mental well-being, that you need a bit of break? Because sometimes if there's so much of work and so much of travel, as you say, the time zones are different, you have to be awake at odd hours for your recording or maybe the audition part. Do you think that sometimes affects your productivity, or you're over that?
No.
You plan your day, your work so well that doesn't seem to be the problem for you?
No, in fact, I have more stability in that respect now than I did before, because when I was working at Red Bull, for example, we worked night shifts. So every 3rd week of the month, say, I would have to completely change up my inner body clock and work through the night, and then sleep in the morning, and then I would have 3 weeks of early shift, and then my body would have to get used to the next change, again going for a night shift. So it was way more up and down back then than it is now. Now I'm very disciplined, and I get up mostly at sunrise, and I go jogging, and we'll go to the gym, and then start my day, have some breakfast. And it's very, very rarely that a client would ask me to record in the middle of the night. And this was, in Japan, it was simply because they had to take care of these other time zones as well. And 6 a.m. there, which meant a 4 a.m. start for me, because I was actually in Kyoto, which was an hour away, and I still had to drive my motorbike to the studio through the pouring rain. So it was, that was an odd one. But generally, people understand.
You call India as the homeland, right? Spiritual homeland. Why?
I don't use that word spiritual homeland a lot, but you're right in the sense that it is. I feel more at home here than I would in my other countries of origin, I guess you could say. I feel more at home here than I do in Germany, than I do in the UK, than I do in Spain. And that must be down to the culture, but also down to the familiarity, having been here so long and from a very young age. But there is that spiritual aspect to it, which is that I first came here also because my parents were connected to a guru. So we would come here, and I would also be immersed in a Buddha field, if you like.
Okay.
and was exposed to a lot of Eastern spirituality and meditations and groups, and yeah, simply having sort of soaked up that vibe as you do as a child from a young age.
What is there a top country as a digital nomad? Because you've traveled so much, right? So
well, yeah, but strangely enough, people are always surprised when I tell them that my first time in Thailand was this year. I've never been to Thailand before, and that's sort of one of the digital nomad hubs that everybody talks about. Goes to Thailand, Bangkok, the island. I loved it. It was great, but I wouldn't want to live there. I've also never been to Bali, never been to Indonesia, which is another one of those that is like digital nomad central. Yeah. So that's definitely something I want to check out, but simply just to check it off my list. I think again, what I hear from friends and colleagues is that it's changed so much, that it's not the El Dorado for digital nomads that it used to be. But who knows? I haven't explored South America enough. I would love to see Brazil and Argentina. Been there. So I have traveled a lot, but it seems to always, looking back, be to pretty much the same places, always in between India, the States, Austria, Spain, UK. Every now and then I'll do something different, like Japan and Tanzania, Colombia, Mexico. But yeah, a place that I'm very interested to see right now is Georgia. I'd love to go there. Okay. Again, I've heard a lot of good things, especially for digital nomads, that the system there is very conducive in terms of the infrastructure, the internet, banking, visa and tax issues. I find it quite fascinating. Malaysia. Bhutan, I'd like to see next. Bhutan, which again is very off the beaten track and really not on anybody's map, but just is supposed to be so beautiful. I heard like there are a couple of countries which is really the top countries for digital nomad. It's Portugal, Thailand, and Estonia. Estonia stands like number 1 in it. Bali, of course, is there, but also Goa is. That's one of the places that people should just go. There's some residences and co-working spaces and big community support where they just kind of have evenings together, brainstorm, where they just brainstorm about each other's background and see what they can come up with. I think it's a very good opportunity for people who have no family responsibilities, I think. So it's not for everybody, but definitely that you can consider. If you're really bored with your 9-to-5 job, the classic tradition of work and then you have a couple of days off, I think it becomes quite boring sometimes. Expat life is nice, but I think within that digital nomad something interesting. I sometimes think, can I do that? But I can't, because you see, you have this responsibility now. You can't just leave everybody in. It was an interesting topic to have you and to speak about your work, not just digital nomad, but you're truly like a global citizen. And I loved how multiple hats that you have. So multiple hats as your work profile and also multiple work that you have done. And it's interesting. I think we're coming to the end of our podcast. Is there anything else that you would like to kind of add to it? Well, perhaps I can just add that Goa. I mean, India in general is quite a challenging place for nomads, for expats in general, I suppose. Simply with the bureaucracy and the infrastructure problems, it's just not as developed as it is in places like perhaps Thailand or Estonia and Portugal. But all the more rewarding when you make it work. So if anybody watching is thinking of trying this in India, please go for it, because I think the whole digital nomad tribe is underdeveloped here, and even the government, I believe, should be supporting it more. And there are, like you say, little pockets springing up in Goa, in the big metropolises, of these co-working spaces, and they're places that I like to seek out if I need a super fast internet connection at some point and just get some contacts in a new city. It's always a great resource to be able to tap into. But yeah, especially with the power outages that you often have in India, and these kind of issues, it makes life very difficult sometimes. Especially if like in my line of work, if you have clients patched in from other parts of the world, and suddenly the line goes dead.
Wow, that's happened.
That's happened. Yeah.
Wow.
But then so there's all sorts of tips and tricks that you can employ. Looking, even when it comes down to your hotel booking, asking them up front if they have a power backup, asking for a quiet room, top floor, away from the elevators, these kind of things. So you just, as you embark on that journey, you slowly start to optimize and, like anything, hone your skills and set the groundwork for as smooth as possible nomading experience, if you like. Yeah. But India is just fascinating, and that's why I've sort of slid into being a filmmaker on the side now, because it's a cinematographer's dream. Everything is so colorful here, and people so lovely and friendly. Yeah.
Let me ask you, what's the next project in your work? Are you working on something special?
Yeah, I'm working on my next multi-award-winning film now. I can't ignore it.
You can, right? You never know. Unless if it's okay, I cannot comment on that.
But it's still top secret. But no, it's a very difficult process at the moment, because this project has been in my head for the last year and a half, and I still haven't made a lot of headway in actually realizing it, because it's a very personal and very autobiographical story that I experienced in Bengal 2 years back, and I'm still experimenting with how best to put that to film. All I know is that this experience is worth telling, and it's quite, from what when I do tell people about it, people are like, yes, that would make for a good short film. So, but how to actually realize that on a very short, non-existent budget, is quite a challenge. So I'm looking for it to be a little short film that carries the message, or the story is carried through voice messages between the main actors. And that's as much as I'll say now. I'll help you guessing.
Yeah, I'm thinking. It is a video.
It's a
with multiple people in it. That's what it's actors. I got that. So.
Well, no real actors. That's the thing. I would want this to be actually acted properly. I mean, I think this material could make for a proper Bollywood movie, a 90-minute feature film with proper actors. But I simply haven't got the means to do that. So I'm going to start off with my own little short, humble version of that, done on my laptop with a lot of India footage and footage from my travels.
I will look forward to that. Really, very look forward to that. With this home, as you said, the home, right? That Indian food is really, you feel home. How has constant travel affected your definition of home and belonging?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I ever really had that definition to begin with, because my whole family has always been so fragmented and distributed around the globe. I have a half-brother in California. My father was living and working in Germany, my mother in Spain. I grew up in the UK, we traveled to India. So I have never really set roots like many other people may have done. There's no place on earth where I would really say that's home, and that's where my family's always been and come from, and my grandparents are still there. I simply don't have that. So all I know is that there are places on this planet where I feel more at home, more at ease, more in tune with the culture. I know how things work. I know, life is easy and familiar.
Easy and familiar.
More in some places than in others. And for me, that happens to be India. I feel most at home here, most welcome here. Even though I really don't look Indian at all, I feel like I'm so connected to this culture from a young age, having grown up in a school that was overseen, if you like, by an Indian spiritual master. So from a young age, I was taught meditation, and we had a lot of Eastern influences in our readings. And so I do feel like this is somehow my home. I feel more at home in India than I do in Germany, UK, or Spain.
Wow. Amen. I think this is a situation where I see many expat kids as well have the same feeling that they don't know where their home is and where they exactly belong, because they have traveled so many countries that it comes to saying what you said. It's hard. You gain so much that you feel it's hard to pinpoint at one place and call that's my home. And home is indeed, as you said, where things are familiar and easy.
Yeah, it's a big issue. I think there's upsides and downsides, but for me, mainly upsides. So, like I said, I wouldn't have that one place where I could say that's my native place, which is a phrase that's often used in India as well, my native place. But then again, home is wherever you make it. So you kind of feel at home everywhere, yet nowhere at once. Hard to put into words.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have it any other way.
And that's why it's called a global citizen, isn't it?
Right.
Digital nomad is somebody who can work wherever he wants to, he or she wants to. At the same time, you also become a global citizen.
Yeah. Or now there's a new term for it, a PT, perhaps a perpetual tourist or a permanent traveler.
PT.
Or some people might even say a previous taxpayer, if they're not paying taxes. But I'm not one of those yet.
Well, I have to add one of those in my podcast. I'm not too sure, but I learned. It's good to know that PT is a new term, not just global citizen.
Yeah, I stumbled across that recently on the internet. I mean, there's a whole subculture of people who have made that now their mission to really go, as they say, go where you're treated best.
Yeah.
In terms of the tax liabilities you have, for the passports you might hold. I mean, everything that flows into the whole equation of your decision of where to settle down or work or spend limited time in, to be able to go after your work and your vocation as well. I mean, your vacation, your work and play rather.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's somehow tied in with the whole libertarian movement.
Right.
Which I haven't researched well yet, but I mean, some people take this very seriously indeed. For me, a big part of why I chose India as well is because I have family here, and that's become one of my big bases. So I wouldn't call myself this. I'm not searching for a very selfish sense to optimize that just yet in terms of getting citizenships in countries that I may not be from.
There's one thing that I kind of didn't ask. It's about your experience about healthcare. I am curious to know, as a digital nomad, how is it with them for healthcare? Like in case if we have hospital, have you come across such situation?
No, it's not a huge issue for me because I do travel back to Austria a lot, where I still have my base and where I'm registered and where I have access to free healthcare, very good quality healthcare. But contrary to what most people think, I think healthcare in India is actually really quite good. And I mean, they're known for exporting far too many doctors. They should stay here. Yeah. I mean, they're brilliant healthcare available here and quite cheap at the same time. Now, I do have the travel insurance.
Yeah.
And there are insurances, meanwhile, that are tailored to digital nomads as well, that are valid in absolutely around the globe and everywhere. So you could get one of those.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So luckily, I haven't been in a situation where I've had to make use of emergency treatment after some mishap. But I have no quarrels being in India, knowing that there's good healthcare.
Yeah. I think that is one of the things that people think of, digital nomad, lack of stability, challenges, right? I think one of them is as well the healthcare. Is that country good enough with good healthcare system in place and stuff? So good to know that you're happy with the healthcare. And of course, Europe, they're much more developed, so everything's in place and streamlined.
Actually, I did break a finger on a motorcycle accident 3 years back. Just reminded me.
Okay.
Funny story, which is I was going just a little too fast, and the rickshaw drove into me, and I ended up coming off the bike and broke a finger, and I had to have that taken care of. And why is it a funny story? Well, because I was racing to get to a meditation. I was late to meditate, and I learned from that. I thought, well, that's kind of stupid.
It must be an important meditation. Wait for it probably, or maybe...
I haven't done yet, but I just didn't want to miss the beginning. And then the universe struck me down with a Zen stick, as they say. I said, no, you're not only going to miss the beginning, but the whole meditation. And this was my first day in Goa that year. So I had to have my finger in a cast for a while, and I couldn't get it wet. In Goa, you'd like to swim, it's by the coast. So I constantly had to swim with one hand up in the air. So I constantly had all these, all the lifeguards thinking I was about to drown, and they'd see me offshore with a hand in the air. I said, no, it's fine. I can't get my finger wet. Yeah.
That is a funny one. Do you have a picture?
That's on my phone somewhere.
Well, we've come to the end of the podcast. I'm really happy and glad that we did. I really enjoyed the whole conversation.
As did I.
We covered quite some points. We got a glimpse of your digital VOMAD lifestyle. We covered how your work works and how you are always on the move with the work follows you, and your little experiences about the whole stay in India. I'm really glad we did that. Thank you so much.
Be able to share it with sort of unorthodox, strange lifestyle. Yeah. But I enjoy it, and perhaps it's something for you, for the listener, for the audience.
Yes, for anybody out there who's thinking of, okay, what is the digital nomad lifestyle like? I think what we gave here was just a little glimpse. But okay, if you can follow Pavi on his Instagram and your website, you can really get a glimpse, much clearer idea of his lifestyle and of course his work. Well, I think that is it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for watching the Rooted and Routed podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you want to see the short film that I made, it'll be in the comments below. Go check it out. It's won 40 awards so far, and it's only 9 minutes long, and I hope you enjoy that too. If you want to follow me on Insta, it's at Pavibes, Pavibes. And don't forget, very important, support this channel, like and subscribe, bottom left-hand corner. See you next time. Ciao.